Hey there, Scorpios. I am Isaac. Welcome to my channel. We're going to get into your reading for the month of September 2024. I'm going to shuffle up your cards. So I usually let people know ahead of time that these types of readings tend to focus around things like spiritual development, spiritual evolution, processing the ego, and that sort of thing, rather than twin flames and soulmates and love and all that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in that stuff, there's plenty of that on YouTube already. But if you want something a little deeper, then stick around and you might just enjoy it. So let's see what we've got for you. So first off, we have the Hermit on the surface, the Eight of Swords, the Five of Cups at the core of the situation, the Devil, the Devil, Six of Pentacles, the Eight of Wands, the King of Swords, and the Chariot. Okay. This is looking a little bit similar to the Libra reading I just did. So there's sort of a question as to your own perception of like your own wisdom. How wise are you really? The hermit is kind of the wise man. He's the astrologer who's mastered the natural forces and is, that there's a little hexagram which represents the union of the opposite forces and the four elements, bringing the fourth spirit. So that lantern is representing him being guided by the light of spirit. The horn at the top, that curled horn at the top, kind of represents power as well as mastery over himself and the natural forces. And there's the stars in the mix. So he's a wise man, like the wise man of the Bible, the wise men from the Bible, that kind of thing. He's a wizard, like a master wizard. And I think on some level, it's like about this stuff to a certain degree, but you may sometimes question, or maybe even it's the opposite. Maybe you overestimate your wisdom. Maybe you overestimate your understanding of the arcane and the occult, which is very easy to do. I mean, one of the most common things I see in almost every spiritual seeker type person I meet is that we always tend, and I'm guilty of this too, we always tend to overestimate how far we are in the path. And then usually it's only when something comes along and happens and kind of the universe is like kind of comes and slaps you in the face a little bit and that you realize like, oh, maybe I don't know as much as I thought I did. So it could be that. So it could be that you're overestimating or underestimating your own understanding of the nature of the universe and your ability to interact with it through things like magic and divination and all that kind of stuff. So whether it's over or underestimating one way or the other, it is actually rooted in some kind of wound, an emotional wound, an attachment, trauma, perhaps even. So this could go both ways. So perhaps something happened at some point, maybe early in life, that caused you to question your ability to trust your own perceptions, or it may have caused you to have to develop a personality where you overestimate your ability to trust your own perceptions, to where there can be some self-deception that goes on because maybe your sense of self-worth might be tied into your sort of occult dealings, your sort of esoteric, spiritual sorts of things. Scorpios tend to really get into the sort of the darker side of things quite often, and maybe even kind of attach a certain amount of identity to it. I've met some who's a lot of Scorpio types who, like, they'll get like occult symbols tattooed on themselves and stuff like that, and kind of really embody the aesthetic of magic and spirituality, and kind of develop this identity of kind of being like, yeah, I'm pretty good at this stuff, I kind of know a lot, kind of get this kind of ego about it. But really, whether it's that or if you're kind of feeling nervous and questioning whether you can trust yourself or not, either way, it's rooted in a sense of insecurity. Really, is where both sides of that come from, whether either the underestimate or overestimation, and it's rooted in some kind of trauma. That's so it may not be immediately obvious how it's connected, um, but so it's, again, this I can't really tell which extreme we're talking about here. Maybe I'll pull another card to see exactly what we're talking about, because I feel like I'm missing a little bit of information. because it's going to be hard to outline both scenarios in this throughout this whole reading. The Empress. Okay, it kind of tells me a little bit. The Sun, Princess of Pentacles. Okay, I'm gonna pause this video for just a second. Okay, so I guess regardless of which end of the spectrum you may find yourself on, you're just gonna have to determine that for yourself. The advice is still kind of the same. So moving forward in the future, what may you may encounter is the Six of Pentacles and the Eight of Wands, where you continue to see more and more manifestations. You know, the Six of Pentacles is kind of like the force in the universe that just drops stuff in your lap. Um, when you do have like a successful manifestation, whether through visualization or some kind of magic ritual or whatever you're doing, every time you witness that, it builds a little bit of momentum, a little more confidence in your abilities and just the nature of the universe and your ability to understand what's really happening. These natural forces, your ability to ride and harness these natural forces and bring them into your life. Um, and really, so if you're the person who maybe tends to overestimate yourself, that's okay. It's still going to be the same. And what happens is the more genuinely confident you become in this kind of stuff, the less of an ego you might have about it, because you stop, because really you might end up eventually finding that you're kind of presenting this image, this idea of yourself as being this sort of like being a witch or being a wizard or a magician, and kind of maybe you dress really witchy, you wear have a cult tattoo or something like that. That can be a way to kind of try to get people to see you as that type of person, because maybe on the inside there's a little bit of doubt still that's kind of hidden and buried underneath the surface. And if you're the kind of person who is maybe kind of underestimating yourself and you're really questioning and feeling kind of like self-doubt, then as you continue to see these things happen, you just continue to build that confidence. So one way or the other, it's like your confidence in your dealings with the hidden realms is increasing. And as you do that, you may find that you feel less inclined to kind of need to present yourself as that kind of person. Like, look, I've been practicing ceremonial magic for the past 10 years every day. And I basically don't wear, I mean, I wear a plain t-shirt. I don't wear a bunch of, I've got my little crystal bracelet, I guess, but I really don't try to like show that's who I am. I don't even tell people that I'm into this stuff most of the time, unless the conversation happens to go that way. I tend to keep I mean, I'm not like secretive and I don't hold that information back, but I don't really try to present it to anyone, because I like to see it as like I wear my magic sigils on the inside. And when you wear them on the outside, there's nothing particular really wrong with it, but there is a it's like when you do that, you're kind of projecting something. You're keeping those things on the surface and preventing those sort of those symbolic representations from really sinking in and becoming and embodying them. A lot of times people wear stuff or get tattoos of stuff that they want to embody and that they feel they identify with. But really, what's actually happening is the opposite: is that there's kind of this you're keeping it at arm's distance by doing that. You're keeping it as an identity and a way of being seen by other people in the world, rather than letting it really become something that you are, really embodying it. And this can be a long process, but I think you're doing it. And the King of Swords with the Chariot is the advice. So you are on the path of, the King of Swords is like, he knows what's up. He understands. Maybe even it can manifest negatively and kind of turn into like a know-it-all kind of energy, but I feel like, I don't think that's really what's being said here as far as the advice. Um, it's really just your confidence in your ability. The Chariot, oops, wrong card. He's being pulled by the natural forces, basically. And in some tarot decks, you'll see that there's the zodiac symbols and the elemental symbols are all over. In this one, you can't really see it, but there's actually the wheel of karma on his head. There's some symbolism here, and there's some zodiacal symbolism here, but it's really representative of somebody who knows how to harness and sort of direct the natural forces and then let those forces carry you forward, which is what magic really is all about. Um, you know, doing rituals or harnessing in one way or another the planetary powers, the zodiacal powers, the elemental powers, angelic spirits, and stuff like that. Your role as the person who is evolving out of this sort of materialistic mindset is you're learning. It's like your new control panel, where instead of controlling things directly, you learn how to give control over to these higher powers, and then they kind of go and do things better than you could do them anyways, and then bring them to you in ways that are really synchronistic and kind of crazy to witness sometimes. Um, I'm gonna pull a few more cards and kind of see what else comes out here. Hopefully, I haven't offended anybody, but with my description of sort of the externalization of things that are really meant to be internalized. But whatever. I'm kind of choosing my audience here, so I'm gonna say what I see and how I see it. And if you don't like it, you don't have to watch. If I start censoring myself because I'm afraid I'm going to upset anybody, then I may as well just go work for someone else instead of doing this on my own. I got to do it my own way. Two of Swords. This cognitive dissonance, this clashing of two ideas is coming up a lot this month for a lot of different signs. Prince of Wands, or the Knight of Wands, same thing. Princess of Wands, or Page of Wands. Six of Wands, and the Four of Cups. I may have rattled a few people or pushed a few people away from this channel just by describing this, the sort of egocentric desire to use magic and the occult as a new identity instead of as a spirit, as a thing, that a process that kind of purges you of this need for external identification like that. But the Two of Swords and the Six of Wands, it's like you might be kind of understanding what I'm saying here, where there's these two clashing ideas about. It's kind of hard to describe here. I guess you could just say, I think you're learning to not need anyone else's approval when it comes to this kind of stuff. And everybody says, "Oh, I don't need anybody's approval. I don't care what people think about me." Yeah, right. That is, I mean, unless you're like an enlightened being and you've already processed all of your trauma and you're just completely, you probably wouldn't need to watch videos like this if you were. Um, Unless you're like a master, you care to some degree what other people think of you. It's not something you can just turn off and on just like that. Um, and it can be subconscious. It can be very subtle and underlying, a subtle underlying thing. But to some degree, there's some worry about needing to be seen a particular way. But also maybe there's like a little bit of like, is this really what this stuff is for? It's not what it's about, in my opinion. It's not about constructing an edgy kind of image where you wear black all the time and have occult symbols all over you. I mean, it's okay if that's your aesthetic and that's what you like, but it's not really like what this is all for. And that's what I see people all over the place in the world who are into this stuff. They use traditions and practices that are ultimately meant to purge you of the negative ego. And instead of doing that, you use it to bolster the ego and make yourself, you turn it into a new identity when the point is to dissolve this false identity in the first place and just be what you are without the need of a mental identity, a mental image of yourself. You just be what you are without having to uphold any sort of need to be seen in any certain way. Um, this reading's been a little bit confusing, actually. It's interesting. So the Prince of Wands here, the Knight of Wands is kind of it represents sort of like a difficulty stopping. It's like momentum. It's like something you kind of keep doing, and it's kind of hard to slow down on. And I feel like maybe we're starting to talk about something else a little bit here rather than what we've been talking about in this video. It's like I feel like this is starting to branch off into something different. It's being strangely vague about a lot of things, even when I pull extra cards to get more information. So, we'll just go with it. But there's something going on here. There's this kind of difficulty slowing down. Maybe you kind of have difficulty changing gears and stuff. And when you're active and you're out doing things and being busy, and then you come home, it can maybe be really hard for you to wind down and slow down because There might be some emotions kind of hiding in the surface, some things that you don't really want to really look at and deal with, that kind of make it so that it makes you feel maybe reluctant to relax, um, or maybe just makes it difficult, like I said, to shift gears because there's a feeling, because when you slow down and relax and kind of and reduce that momentum and kind of just be and exist in the present, that's when all the feelings start to come to the surface. And there is some sort of, the Page of Wands can be sort of a bit of insecurity, not necessarily like, when I say insecurity, what I literally mean is a sense in your body of being unsafe. And many people have this chronically, where there's kind of an underlying. Sometimes it's big and like on the surface, and you can see it, and sometimes it's just kind of running in the background all the time. It's just this underlying stress, this kind of feeling of like of not quite being like safe, even when things around, even if you're just like by yourself in a safe, quiet environment. There's still this kind of like I want to, like I need to be doing something. I need to be making more happen. But that might actually be rooted in, it's an emotional wound, I think, having to do with the sense of self worth. Um, so I'm gonna pull just a couple more cards and see what we got here. Okay, 6 of Wands, the Hermit again, and the Empress. So this is a long journey. You've if you've stuck out this video so far, then you're probably somebody who's like pretty into this whole spiritual kind of journey thing, for lack of a better term. Um, and it takes time. It's a slow process for some of us. Some people just suddenly their ego just collapses and they're just fully present all of a sudden, and then like that's kind of apparent. Allegedly, that's what happened to Eckhart Tolle, and it does happen to people. And we all wish that we had the fast path, but be careful not to overestimate your progress, because you can make some mistakes. You can rub people the wrong way. You can ultimately build up that sort of tower of ego, and maybe become a little arrogant about it and kind of be like, I'm more spiritual than you. I've been doing it, guys. That kind of thing. Not to say that that's what you're doing, but maybe some of you, I don't know. But this is a long journey. Just be careful not to overestimate your progress. We all do it. I know I have many times. And I mean, there's been, at least 10 times where I'm like, oh, once I work through this thing, then I'll be done. And this process will be over and I'll completed the transformation process, only to find that there's a new layer of the onion, and then another layer and another layer and another layer. And that can be really upsetting in the moment when you think that when you think that you're this far, and then something happens to show you that you're actually maybe this far and you haven't gone as far as you think you have. That can be kind of a really upsetting moment. And it's not necessary, because there's no need to really try to measure yourself on where you're at in this path, because honestly, it doesn't really end. There are milestones, there are times, there are different phases to this process, but what we're really talking about is an infinite evolution that will literally never end. Even after this lifetime, you will continue to grow and expand as a conscious being in ways that we probably can't even comprehend as human beings right now. So there's no rush. There's no need to try to measure yourself and how far you've gone, because all that really is just trying to. It's an unconscious attempt to kind of put yourself above other people. I'm farther on the path than you are. It doesn't work that way, and treating it that way doesn't help. It actually just stifles your progress, and then you usually end up feeling kind of silly when the universe comes and humbles you. Uh, like I said, Lord knows I've been there many times. Um, and when you're doing things like manifestation and magic and stuff, it's easy to get a big head about it and start to think that you're the one in control. And it is you who's making it happen, but not the you that you think you are. It's not this mental image of yourself, this egoic sort of collection of beliefs and thoughts that measures itself against everyone else. It is still you, but it's not that you. That's the false ego. That is more like a conditioned psychic parasite that we're trying to starve and dissolve. Um, Anyways, I kind of lost my train of thought there. I've been doing a lot of readings today, and I think my brain's getting a little mushy. So the Empress here. Um, It's much more. All of this stuff is about a feeling. It's all so subjective. It's not about I'm this level of whatever. I've achieved this grade in the ceremonial order of the golden. It's not about that at all. It has nothing to do with your status in, in involving other people or against, measuring yourself against other people. It's all purely based on a feeling, being able to be in the present moment and allowing these sort of energies to move through you. And instead of trying to force things into being and controlling things, you learn how to sort of, the Empress can represent pregnancy, and not necessarily always physical pregnancy, but like the idea that like the things being born out of the astral womb. You're creating these astral objects, these energies that are programmed with intentions, and then they kind of have to gestate in the astral realm, and then they come through, and then eventually they come to you. There's like a I kind of see it as almost like a spinning vortex of energy, and when these manifestations are ready, they get put into that vortex that spins around over time and kind of centers itself in your heart. And when those energies reach your heart and you feel them, that's when your heart is where you project your reality from. Uh, it's basically your main projector. If your reality is like a screen, then your heart center is the projector. And so what you feel in your heart is what really becomes manifest in your world. And so it's all about feeling, um, not perceptions of others. So, anyways, I feel like I feel like my last Scorpio video was probably a little bit may have been affronting to some people. This might have been an affront to some people as well. But I've kind of got to just do things. I got to say it how I see it, or else I'm just wasting both of our time. So if you're enjoying this kind of stuff, check out your other video for the astrology for the month of September. Check out all the information in the description below. I do offer private readings, natal chart readings, tarot card readings, all that kind of stuff. Leave comments, like, subscribe, all that stuff, and I'll talk to you again soon. Take care.